leaders, and I'm here today facilitating the student listening session with Pavan.
Sorry, it took me a moment to unmute there. This is a common thread with every Zoom meeting with me, is that I will have like a minute gap before I unmute myself. But anyway, I'm Pavan. I use he, him pronouns. I'm the Western Washington student representative of the State Board of Education. I'm also a member of the Association of Washington Student Leaders. It's really great to be with you all today and to do this with McKenna to talk about the profile of a graduate. Yeah, as is the practice of the State Board of Education, we start the statewide meeting by acknowledging that we are connecting from the ancestral and unceded traditional lands of 29 federally recognized tribes, and numerous other Native American tribes have not received federal recognition. We give thanks to the Native American tribes who are the original and current stewards of this land and to the land itself.
And I'm joining today from the traditional lands of the Colville people. If you'd like to discover which tribal lands your home or school occupies, you can visit the Native Land website, and staff will post this link to the website in the chat. Okay, at this time, we encourage student participants to introduce themselves in the chat. Please include whatever details you're comfortable sharing. For example, this could include your name, pronouns, location, or grade level.
And just a brief apology, forgot to mention I'm on Duwamish land, forgot to add that onto my statement. But anyway, I'll let you guys go and introduce yourselves.
Hi, my name's Anna Hendry. I use she, her pronouns. And I go to SFCC, the community college, but I'm here to listen and talk too.
All right. Before we dive in, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping items. As a reminder, this session is to hear from students. We are excited to welcome current students as well as any recent high school graduates to join us in today's conversation. We are in webinar mode and we would like to promote all students to be panelists. This will enable you to turn on your camera and unmute yourself when you want to participate in the conversation. We ask all students to rename yourself in Zoom and add the word student after your name. If you need assistance with this, just let us know in chat and staff can provide support. When we open up the floor for discussion questions, please use the raise hand feature found in the reactions menu when you would like to speak, and we will call on you. We also hope that all students will respond to the polling questions. Students are welcome to use the chat window to share additional thoughts or questions. Any adults in attendance should be in listen-only mode. We ask adults to reserve the chat as a space for students to add their thoughts, and we ask that adults refrain from responding to the polling questions.
Okay, so we're going to start off by talking about current graduation requirements. Pavan and I are going to provide some brief background on each component of the diploma, and we have some poll questions and discussion questions mixed into our presentation to see how well these requirements resonate with students' actual experiences. To begin, it's important to recognize the purpose of the high school diploma according to statute or state law, which is to declare that a student is ready for success in post-secondary education, gainful employment and citizenship, and is equipped with the skills to be a lifelong learner. Students must complete 3 components to achieve the Washington State High School Diploma, including the High School and Beyond Plan, the credit and subject area requirements, and the graduation pathway option. We'll quickly go over each of these components one by one. Okay, the first component is the High School and Beyond Plan. If this doesn't sound familiar, it's possible that your school or district calls it by a different name. Sometimes after the school mascot, like the Tiger Plan or something like that. In any case, this is planning tool is a graduation requirement. The high school and beyond plan is designed to support students in exploring what they would like to do after high school and how to prepare for those goals. It should guide selection of coursework and activities aligned to the student's interests. It also serves to keep track of major assessment scores and to log the student's work, school activities, community service, and other relevant experiences so that students have a resume or activity log by the time they graduate. Plans should be starting by 8th grade and should be updated during the student's high school journey. Okay, now we would like to do some poll questions using Mentimeter. If you're on a computer, you can go to www.menti.com and enter the code to access these polls, or you can simply click on the link that staff put into the chat. If you're on your phone, you can try these steps too, or hold your camera up to that QR code and click the URL. I know, probably pretty familiar with that. The first question is, do you have a high school and beyond plan? And keep in mind that it may be called something different by your school. Okay, starting to see some results come in. I'm just going to give it a little more time. I know sometimes the internet can be laggy and things aren't loading, so I'm just going to give this a few more moments. Okay, well, that's looking pretty good. Most people do have a high school and beyond plan. And I know for me personally, I didn't really know that I had one and that it was kind of just something my school did like without me. So it's completely understandable if you don't know if you have one. Okay, so for students who answered yes, we have a few follow-up questions. So please let us know how your plan was developed and you can go ahead and check all that apply. Okay, I'm just gonna give this a couple more moments. All right, so far it's looking like most people are doing it as part of an advisory class, which I know is pretty common. That's what we do at my school too. Um, but yeah, it's looking pretty diverse. Okay, we need to move on to talk about the next component. We'd love to hear your thoughts on how to make a high school and beyond plan more useful. If you have suggestions about that, you can put your ideas in the chat. And we'll also be asking more Mentimeter questions. So keep your Menti window open if you can.
Yeah, so for now, we're going to move on to talk about the next component of the diploma, which is the credit and subject area requirements. The state graduation requirements include a total of 24 required credits, including 17 core credits and 7 flexible credits. The core credits include 4 English, 3 science, 3 math, 3 social studies, 2 health and fitness, including 1.5 credits of PE and half a credit of health, 1 arts credit, and 1 career and technical education credit. The flexible credits include 4 electives and 3 personalized pathway requirements, which are electives aligned with the student's high school and beyond plan. It is common for students to complete 2 world language credits and a second arts credit, but these courses can be replaced with other electives if there is something else that aligns better with the student's plan. This looks different from your experience. It's possible you're in a district that has added local requirements on top of the state requirements. When that happens, sometimes it limits the number of elective credits that are up to the student's choice. It's also possible for local districts to require more than 24 credits. And this is oftentimes connected to the type of bell schedule a school district decides to use, such as a trimester schedule. All right, time to do some poll questions. All right, for our poll question, we'd like to know, how well does your high school learning experience match with the subject area requirements we just presented? All right, so okay, so got a Menti question. So if you put it in the chat, if you look a little bit above that, there's a message with the link to Menti. Just click on that. Or if you're on your phone, I don't know if the scanning code is up still. I think if you're on your phone, it'll still work if you key in that. Yeah, there's the code. So just scan that, and then you'll get in. Then you can vote. And yeah. Yeah, we're watching the results to get like a little bit of feedback, because this is, of course, to listen to all of you. So this is one where we're trying to listen. Yeah, so far, gotcha. Okay, I'm gonna wait for like a little bit, and then we'll see if we get anybody else, and then if not, we'll move on. But these are really interesting results. All right, we'll move on to the next question. Actually, sorry, my bad. At this time, we'd like to open up the discussion to hear from students on whether this framework provides the right balance of flexibility and structure. If you'd like to share your thoughts about this, please use the raise hand feature and we'll call on you to speak. No matter, feel free, even if you don't feel like, it's the most well-formed thought, don't worry about it. Just if you want to share anything at all about this, raise your hand, we'll call on you.
Emma, you can go ahead.
Hello, I'm Emma Patterson from Fletcher Lake Public School District. And for an idea for the flexibility of credits, I think personally we should add a personal finance credit, because I think that could be useful to students. So far as the electives and the other credits, I do feel that there could be some more elective credits. But yeah, that's my opinion. Thank you.
Good feedback, yeah. Anybody else?
Andrew, you can go ahead.
Thank you. I'm Andrew Hoff from the Monroe School District, and I was just curious, where would like financial education, financial literacy training fit into this into the credit requirements? Would it go under CTE, or perhaps something more like social studies or something like that? Where does that fit in, or is it even in most traditional graduation requirements?
Jaylee, do you want to answer that? My initial thing is that financial ed is not part of it, but I think the financial ed can fit into CTE, if I'm correct. Like, you could do a financial education class, but there's no like dedicated like financial education credit that you like have to do.
Yes, and that's
Okay.
correct, Pavan. There are a variety of different ways that school districts can provide students the opportunity for financial education, but it's not explicitly reflected in this framework. And I think you'll see that'll come up again later as well, because it is part of the profile. So very good question.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was a good question. So does anybody else want to, you can unmute yourselves or anything at all?
I don't know how to raise my hand, but I, Elgin Reese, intended to speak.
Go ahead.
Okay, so what I have to say is, I think that the number of credits should maybe go down, because the problem isn't that
Sorry,
think-
Elgin, we
I
can't
think,
hear
yeah, I think we
you.
just lost you. Thought that was my computer for a moment, but yeah. If you want, we can come back to you. But just to let you know, we cannot currently hear you.
And also, if you're having technical difficulties, feel free to put comments in the chat too, if that's working better for you.
Yeah, okay, so for now, would anyone else like to share on this?
I will jump in right here because, hi, I'm Summer Pease. I'm a junior. At least in the Wenatchee School District where I'm from, we do have a financial literacy grad requirement, and it fits into our CTE. I don't know how they fit it in, but it is a requirement, and I think we have 3 different options to fill that financial literacy, so it does fit.
That's good to know, yeah. There's a lot of local variation on this. Oh, I think your mic's working again, so I'll mute myself.
it's working, I hope. Can you hear me?
Yep.
I can't understand your response.
Yeah, we
Yes.
can hear you.
Yeah.
Okay. I think the problem with the current graduation requirements isn't the requirements themselves, but that the requirement is you pass 100% of your classes, which as far as I know, there isn't a single other state where that's the case. And that's a problem because it may make kids have to do credit retrieval or take extra years, which would be quite expensive for the state, A, and B, in other states, it works just fine without having to pass literally all your classes. But other than that, I think the requirements themselves are pretty reasonable.
That's good feedback, yeah. Anybody else? Sure, Grace, go ahead. Feel free, you can just unmute yourself. Or yeah, you can just unmute, yeah.
We good? Can you hear me?
Perfectly.
Okay, cool. So I don't know if I'm supposed to do an introduction or not. I actually go to an online school, so this is a bit different for me. I'm in kind of like the Olympia Rochester School District, so more like centralized to Washington. So I think the one thing that I found from struggling with the requirements and stuff that I wish was available is that I wish I didn't have to take certain things. Like certain things to me are kind of useless for what I want to do, which is an academy, which they have their own requirements on top of the state requirements. So I have to like juggle not only state requirements, but an entire university's requirements just to be able to attend it, which makes it really a struggle when there's other stuff already on my plate. Plus, like, I don't want to have to go back. Like, what if I'm in 11th grade, so what if I have to go back and do summer school just to make up for half a year of Washington State history or something like that? Like, I wish like maybe I didn't have to take art, or I could fill it in with something else, or it was more mendable or switch aroundable. I don't know how to explain it other than that. But really I like it. I like how there's a lot of diversity, but I do think some things for certain people, they just don't really need. Like some people, that's not for their career they want to do or what they think they want to do. That's not really in the books for them. So it's kind of useless to them.
Yeah, actually, I'll say that's pretty common feedback is that people feel like they're taking classes which aren't useful for what they want to do. So without like making a general judgment about what is and what isn't for every student, that is a pretty common piece of feedback. I'll note. But does anybody else want to talk? Sure, Andrew.
Well, to kind of maybe a potential solution to what Grace was talking about was I think there's some alternative learning environments in Washington State that some of them actually will allow you to choose, to an extent, choose the classes that you take. And there's a few of them scattered around Washington State, but some of those do allow you to actually participate in choosing through a survey. You choose which classes you want to take, which you don't want to take. But they are alternative, but that might be a possibility if that's something you're interested in.
Gotcha. Yeah. If there's nobody else, and we'll have plenty of opportunities to discuss more later on, I'm going to move on to the next part of this. Just one moment. One moment, guys. All right. So let's see. It's McKenna. Is it your turn?
Yep, this is mine.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so now we're going to move on and talk a little more about the third component of the diploma, which is the graduation pathway option. This is a new graduation requirement that began with the class of 2020, but implementation has been disrupted due to COVID, obviously. So prior to having graduation pathways, students were required to pass exit exams or acceptable alternatives in order to graduate. The legislation that created pathways served to delink standardized testing from graduation and replace it with a system of multiple options that are intended to be individualized and allow students to show that they're ready for their own education and career goals. Most of the pathway options are still test-based, but a variety of tests are recognized, and there are also course-based options. The pathways include the Smarter Balanced State Assessment, dual credit courses, AP, IB, and Cambridge exams, SAT and ACT college entrance exams, transition courses, combinations of the above pathways, the Armed Services Vocational Aptitude Battery, and career and technical education course sequence. For our poll question, we'd like to know if there is a graduation pathway option that is relevant to your goals after high school. Okay, I'm going to give this a couple more moments to let people fill in responses. And to answer the question in the chat, you don't need a phone to vote. That link in the chat can take it to you on your computer.
Okay, thanks. I'm on a phone, so how do I vote on the Menti?
I think you should be able to open up the link in a different tab on your phone. I don't think it'll kick you from the Zoom meeting.
Okay. Oh, I found the link. How do you go back?
You should
Hello?
just be able to switch back and forth tabs on your phone. I'm not sure which device you're using, but I think you can just switch back and forth through tabs.
Okay, I made it back.
Okay, I'll give this a couple more minutes, but so far it's looking like at least half of you guys definitely have a plan that's relevant to you, which is really good. And some people that are kind of in the middle. Okay, our next question is, would you like to have other graduation pathway options? Okay, so far this is pretty interesting. Looking like the majority of people would like to have other pathway options, but a good percentage of you guys wouldn't, which is pretty interesting. Okay, for those who said yes, we would love to hear your ideas for other pathway options that you'd like to have, but we do need to move on, so please enter your suggestions in the chat.
All right, perfect. Now that we have finished going over the current graduation requirements, we would like to take a moment to do a word cloud to capture how students would describe the requirements. Please enter into Menti 3 words that you would use to describe current graduation requirements. And don't worry about being too planned out. Just put down whatever you think. Cool. Cool. Good words. Definitely stressful. Yep.
Also, just something to add, if words are repeated a couple times, they'll get bigger. So if you see words enlarge in some way, that means that a lot of people are entering that as one of their words.
Overwhelming. Yeah. Stressful. Vague. Yeah. Yeah, I'll wait for a couple more moments. So don't feel any pressure on time. All right, gonna move on from this. That's good feedback. We're gonna move on to some more word stuff though. So we would like to shift gears into thinking about our hopes for the future. Please enter into Menti 3 words that you hope could describe graduation requirements in the future. So in your ideal world. Yep, I certainly hope so. Personalized, attainable. Yeah, definitely agree. Yeah, these are all good words. So just because of time, we're gonna move on from this, but appreciate all the feedback. Let's see. Is McKenna, is this you? McKenna, this is you. In fact,
Yep.
okay.
Okay, so we're going to shift gears again, to keep talking about future direction. So the state has been on a journey to provide students with more opportunities for what is called mastery-based learning. This includes providing more opportunities for students to be in the driver's seat of their education, advance at their own pace, and show what they know and what they can do in more relevant and authentic ways. So the most recent step in this journey was the development of the state's profile of a graduate. It was developed by the Mastery-Based Learning Work Group after consulting with students, families, educators, and the business community. The profile of a graduate describes the cross-disciplinary skills like critical thinking and financial literacy that students should develop by the time they graduate in order to thrive in their next steps after high school. So this slide shows the profile of a graduate skills grouped into 6 categories, including cultivates personal growth and knowledge, solves problems, communicates effectively, sustains wellness, embraces diversity and differences, and masters life skills and self-agency. Developing these skills is a lifelong process, but the K-12 education system should support students in developing age-appropriate foundational skills, which prepare them for their next steps in life. Once fully implemented, we would expect all Washington students to be developing these skills throughout their K-12 experience, and for high school graduates to feel well equipped to draw upon each of these interconnected skills as appropriate. So as I mentioned, the profile of a graduate is brand new and has not yet been implemented. The Mastery-Based Learning Work Group submitted the profile of the graduate to the legislature in December, and there's been a handoff to the State Board of Education for next steps. The State Board is now examining alignment of the profile of a graduate with the high school diploma components and graduation requirements. The central question of this examination is what changes do we need to make to graduation requirements to ensure students are provided enough opportunity to develop the profile of a graduate skills. The information collected in today's listening session will help inform the board, along with other research and input over the next several months, leading to recommendations that the State Board will submit to the legislature by December.
All right. That we have reached the heart of today's discussion. We would like to know whether your educational experience has provided you with enough opportunity to develop these skills. And if not, what are the gaps? Which skills do you need more opportunity to develop in high school? Please raise your hand if you would like to weigh in. And if you're feeling more introverted, you are welcome to enter thoughts in the chat as well. So whoever wants to go first, you can just unmute yourself. Sure, Hannah, go ahead. Did I?
Okay.
Oh, there you go.
So I feel like all my thoughts are everywhere. I haven't really collected them all, but I was looking at this, and the one thing that stood out to me, at least at my school, I go to Pasco High. I live in Tri-Cities, but the master's life skill and self-agency one stood out to me because I feel like at my school, a lot of kids are not held accountable for even simple things like getting assignments done on time. So that's something that's bothered me. And I feel like if teachers aren't enforcing it and students aren't practicing it very well in high school, it's going to be a wake-up call way more than it should be when they get into college or work after school or whatever they choose to do. I feel like it is something that should be enforced, at least in my experience. So.
Gotcha. All right, Emma, you can go next.
Related to the sustained wellness, especially the emotional wellness and well-being, I feel like there's just kind of this stigma around mental health, and schools do talk about it, but related to like assignments, they do, at least in my school, do a really good job of reminding you to get your work done, but the way they do it is just, they don't really ask what's going on with you personally or check in with you about why aren't you getting your work done, maybe what's the reason, how can I really help you get through that. It's just like, oh, you got to get this turned in before the due date, or you're going to like fail this class. So it's not really asking about mental health, it's acknowledging it, but not really taking care of the needs.
Sure. I don't know who unmuted or who raised their hands first.
I think it was Summer.
Okay, cool.
Sure.
You can go.
Hi, so I wanted to comment on two, the sustains wellness and the embraces differences in diversity. First, the sustains wellness, because at least in our like health curriculum in our class, we had a really big mental health unit. But I think the problem was it was the teacher and the person actually instructing this, and when telling students how to go and talk about their mental health, it has to be the right person to talk, because there's definitely teachers who don't feel comfortable to begin with either. And then the one with embraces differences and diversity. At least I go to Wenatchee High School, so we're a pretty big school. So it's, at least at our school, it's amazing. We have an entire diversity coordinator in charge of making sure everyone's included, and it's great. But I see a lot in the smaller schools, at least in Eastern Washington, that is not getting pushed, and there's a lot of students who are slipping through the cracks and feeling invisible to their teachers and their peers simply because they have admin and peers who don't believe in it. So I think it's something that it needs to get really pushed in Eastern Washington, that this is not just like an optional thing that teachers and staff need to be teaching, but it's required. They need to be making sure that every student feels loved and every student is accepted for their differences.
Definitely. Yeah, Hannah, you go next.
So my name's Hendry. I graduated in 2021 from the Spokane School District. And I was lucky enough to have really good teachers that, communicated with me. But I noticed with my peers and a lot of like our events was not really including a lot of people. And there's a lot of diversity in my school. And it was definitely everybody, I didn't think everybody respected each other, and we never came together as students. And yeah, everybody was like kind of against each other. There wasn't really any unity. COVID made it worse because COVID hit my junior year. So that really affected people's mental health, and no one knows how to socialize anymore, communicate with people. And that's a huge life skills, communication, knowing how to ask the right questions, who to ask the questions to. And a lot of people don't have stable families and don't know how to, at least at my school, a lot of people did not have stable families, so they didn't get taught that at home. So they kind of rely on school for that. I had a really great program for homeless youth, like I was, called McKinley program, and that really helped me because they would always ask me how I'm doing, and they got me out of it and got my plan together. But a lot of students aren't pursued that way because there's not enough people in that program, like mentors. And I think a lot of people need mentors, or high school counselors could be a little better.
Definitely, that's a really powerful story. Appreciate you sharing. Grace, you can go next.
Okay, cool. Can you guys hear me?
Perfectly, clearly.
Okay, cool. So I'm seeing a lot of negative stuff, so I'm hopefully gonna brighten and make it a little bit better. So as being somebody who goes to an online school, my experience with school is a lot different. It is part of Washington, but again, it's a lot different than in person. So there's a lot of things I can't relate to, but there is some stuff that I can say is either better or works much more efficiently than like an in-person. And so for me personally, my school experience has been wonderful. My teachers are amazing. I mean, the majority of them are amazing. They want to help me. They're understanding if something goes wrong and I have to miss something, or I have to make something up, or if I have to redo something. So that's really helpful. And I think the only thing about gaps would be is not every kid likes school, and I wish every kid did like school. Not every kid thinks school, most kids hate school and think it's a waste of time. And I wish there was a way of helping them understand that it really is like something that's worth your while, and like this is something that's really important and like not everybody gets. So I think the master's life skills / self-agency, like I feel like implementing something like this is worth your time, like this is really going to help you, like, and just showing and I guess being there and being helpful to the students and understanding them is really important.
Definitely. Anna, you got anything to add?
Yeah, to add on, I think there should be more community-based projects. Every school's different, so a lot of schools do have stuff like that, but I think all like middle schools to high schools should have like some sort of thing to get you out there and involved in your community. because a lot that's not really a thing, and we're not as like people doing that. And COVID really separated people too. And I think that'd be good to be involved in like, I don't know, like community-based projects a lot more. And like you can incorporate it in art or science classes. And, you know, I think that'd be really good. Or like having community gardens. I know some high schools do, but in my city, there's not at all. And my brothers are currently going to Shadle too. And you know, from their like learning their experiences, there's not any initiative for kids to like, I don't know, work together, like and be collaborative. And that's important in the real world or in college, I think.
Yeah, this is for all of you and to hear from you more than to hear from me. But I would say I've read a lot about the impact that organizations like Big Brothers and Sisters can have, mentorship programs can have on stabilizing kids' lives and providing stability in a time of real instability for I think everyone. I mean, every student, whether it's a personal challenge or maybe it's a challenge in school or maybe it's a challenge in their communities, this is a hard time for all of us, and we're all going through one thing or another. And some challenges are going to be way more acute than others. So yeah, I totally agree that we can do a better job of integrating that, not just from a private organization, but integrating it into the school system. You totally agree with you there. But yeah, I'll open up the floor for more people. Andrew, you can go ahead.
Yeah, I think I would agree with what Anna, I think it was Grace was saying, and I think on a different note, looking at the profile of a graduate, I think the critical thinking aspect of the profile of a graduate, I feel like that's something that's underdeveloped in children, because a lot of it kind of goes teacher by teacher, but a lot of teachers kind of just say this is what it is, and this is how it is, and what your peer, and then you have so much peer pressure, and so your peers are all saying something, your teacher is all saying something, and it seems like most teachers don't say you need to look for yourself, you need to research it, you need to look at both sides, and that seems like something that's kind of that's underdeveloped in both classrooms and curriculum, and I think in students as well.
Yeah, totally. Donna, you can go ahead.
And going off what Andrew said, I think teachers are a big part of our education because it really depends like how they teach you and like if what I don't know. I had really great teachers, but I've also have seen some really like biased or teachers that aren't really have their heart into it, or sometimes they need different type of training to like how to approach a student and to make them feel included. And I think we just need more of that, maybe different training for teachers so they can know how to make us think critically without making us feel like we are dumb or like they're just not being helpful. Because I've gotten from a lot like math for me in my math class, I got a lot of like just look in the textbook or just use this formula. But I'm in college now and I have a really good teacher and he makes us think how to actually do it. And I don't know, I think that would have been more helpful for me going to college instead of retaking all these math classes.
Yeah, and I would respond. I there are times I feel that administrators and teachers, because it is a day-to-day job for them, they forget how much impact sometimes that they have on all of us. One class doing badly in a class can make a student think that they're not cut out for education or they're not cut out for learning. Or doing especially well in a class can tell another student that they're going to do great and that they want to pursue, maybe it's a bachelor's degree or a master's degree. So I totally get you there. Totally agree. You can go next. You have your hand up.
So I'm just looking at this like profile of a graduate, and I think the most effective like way we could start this is like it needs to be not just like a high school thing that we started in, because I feel like if we've gone through the public school system and all of a sudden in ninth grade we're thrown into these 6 requirements they want us to have, which are great requirements, it's not going to be effective. It needs to be something that's cultivated and grown with these kids since the moment they step in a public high school or public school in general. It can't just be something that we immediately expect these 14-year-old, I think that's like freshman year, like these 14-year-olds to know. It needs to be something that's built up and that grows with them as they get through the education.
So what I'm gonna do, let's see. Yeah, so what we can do, Jaylee, because I don't know who's operating the slide deck, is I want to bring in the next slide into this discussion because I think we can talk about both at the same time. So our last group of questions was about digging deeper at the current framework and considering whether and how profile skills should be reflected in credit and subject area requirements, sorry. We talked about topics like financial education. How should those topics be reflected in the requirements? For example, it could be as a required or elective course or integrated into other topics, and what could be taken out of the framework to make room for these topics. So what I want to do here is we're talking a lot about just the school system in general, and whether we feel like we've learned enough. And I want to keep that discussion going, but I also want to make sure we're addressing the profile stuff because at the end of the day, we want to hear from all of you about what you think about that policy. So Anna, go ahead. You can fire us off on this.
Sorry, you're on mute.
Yeah.
Sorry. I definitely think the financial literacy part is a huge thing. Like it's not required. There are classes for it. They are offered, but it's not really put as a priority to be taught about or like learned about. And a lot, as I said before, a lot of people don't have like people to teach them that outside of school. And even getting ready to go to college, knowing how financial aid works and how to look for grants, because there's so many loopholes you're not taught about. Knowing about credit score, because a lot of people work during college, and only like 31% of like students are confident in financial literacy around the US. And that's kind of, kind of scary because when I got into the work field and I had to work and go to college at the same time, I was like, how do taxes work? What does this mean? I was freaking out, and I have to go to my mentor all the time and ask her how like financial aid works. And I'm lucky to have a mentor, but a lot of people don't or don't have that confidence and knowledge of how to approach it. So I think there should be something that starts middle school, not, it doesn't have to be super hard, but at least throughout the years being taught it, because then it'll retain. And I think that'll be helpful.
No, Emma, you can go next.
Adding on to financial literacy, I think because it's not a requirement, it's actually at least harder in my district to get the class in the way that seniors get first priority because they're graduating. So if you sign up for the class as like a freshman or a sophomore, it's very unlikely that you get into that class because it's mostly given to people who need the credit recovery.
Gotcha. Would anybody else like to share? Feel free. Because we've kind of reached the point of this where it's really open-ended, and McKenna and I are going to be quiet and listen to all of you. So really, in fact, if you guys want to just unmute yourselves and just talk without me designating you to speak, you're free to do that too. You can just keep yourselves on mute and keep talking. We're listening.
I'm gonna sort of change the conversation really quick from the financial literacy to this communicates effectively. And I'm looking through this and I'm reading works on a team and collaborates. And the first thing that comes to my mind as the student is group projects. And I know everyone has had their fair share of group projects that they do not like. And I think if we're going to go and make this a profile of a graduate, what we want, we have to go and be able to structure how we want them to be able to achieve that. And personally, group projects do not work, at least in my mind. In my past experience, there needs to be a different way to get students to learn how to collaborate and be on a team other than just being like, hey, here's 3 partners. You have 2 weeks to write this assignment and then just turn it in. I don't think that is the proper way to teach someone how to collaborate and be on a team. It needs to be more thought out behind it.
Sure. So I would add, I feel like, and this is a good point to bring up. I feel like the intent in designing this was to be as, to have as little prescription for how these goals should be achieved as possible. So you bring up a good point. Group projects don't work for everybody, definitely. But I'd put this a different way. If you look at the goal, our schools are a team in their own way. So how do we interact within our own school community? That's a skill that we can demonstrate as a graduate, just to hit that. So I totally understand. And it's a good thing that people look at this profile and they see different things. That's how it should be. That when they read parts of this, they get, oh, this means a different thing to me. It's perfect. That's exactly what we want. So that's a good demonstration of, I think that we're getting to a good place with this. But anyway, whoever wants to go next, go ahead, unmute yourself. Feel free to talk.
To add on kind of to the community, like school as a community and like working together, I think a lot of students think that means school spirit, you know, going to games or whatever. They think that just means like participating and like, you know, I don't know, a bunch of school spirit days, go to the assembly and they hype you up. But that's not really, I don't think it really like expands people's minds of like how to actually work with other people. And one thing we talked about in my sociology class is for people to feel comfortable with all types of people, there should be like ethnic studies and stuff like that to, you know, help people understand there's other types of people out there and like not being afraid to, I don't know, work with anybody. And I agree that group projects within a class itself aren't really effective. But I think if it was more, you know, hands-on and, you know, not sometimes even just around your school or going into the community with people, they'll be more interested. And kids want to do stuff when they're in high school. They want to remember things. And if they do something someone's interested in, I think that'd be nice too. Or in school spirit days, there should be like diversity days as well. I think that would be really nice. Like my school does not have that. And I don't know any schools in Spokane that have that. And I've seen it online, like certain other schools have done that, and it's very beneficial because it feels all students are included and other students can feel included by learning about other people's, you know, cultures and the diversity.
Definitely, yeah, that's a great point because the board has also done work on this front and pushing that forward as well. So this is all music to our ears, in that we're hearing that students tend to agree with where we're trying to take education in the state as well. But again, whoever wants to go next, feel free.
I'm gonna give the floor to Andrew because I noticed you've been trying to unmute for a minute and speak.
Thank you. I just, something I was noticing, I was kind of looking over the profile, and a lot of these things like takes initiative, shows confidence, applies learning, specifically masters life skills and cultivates personal growth and knowledge. I feel like those are pretty reliant on your teachers. I feel like a lot of it, I think like Anna and maybe some other students have already mentioned that it kind of goes teacher by teacher, and some teachers just automatically, without maybe knowing about the profile of a graduate, they kind of have a passion for developing personal initiative in their students and not just treating them like another cookie in the cookie cutter. You know, just turn out another student. They kind of take a personal interest and want to develop them as students and as people. And so just kind of a thought that perhaps one of the keys to implementing this might be to really make the teachers aware of this and have the teachers kind of take kind of own this and really make this their passion so that they can apply this to students. Because I feel like if you have a teacher that's not really on board with this, even if the student is, the teacher is the one teaching. So I feel like the student would kind of suffer under that teacher's teaching, because the student's on board with this profile, but the teacher isn't. So I think one of the main, it might even be more important for a teacher to be on board with the profile than a student. So just having that, having teachers be very aware of this and having this kind of as one of their passions, I feel like might be one of the keys to having this work effectively.
Sure, definitely. Grace, go ahead. Just want to make sure if you're trying to talk, at least me, I can't hear you. I don't know if everybody else can hear you as well, but I see you're unmuted. So, all right, I think that was the sound. Yeah,
work.
there you go. You're good now.
Okay, cool. There we go. I had to unmute on both. Cool. Okay. So earlier, I don't remember who said it, but somebody brought up a really good point, and that was we should be starting this earlier. And as soon as I heard that, it like clicked. I was like, oh my God, yeah. Because I think for most kids, I don't think you should have to be like, you need to pick a career right now and you need to try to follow it. I don't think we should be doing that sort of thing, like what we do in high school. But I definitely think there should be like, hey, this, doing this is going to help you with this, or just looking into like, what do you want to do? What do you like? What are you good at? What do you thrive at? Because I feel like most kids don't take anything seriously until high school because they know that their grades don't really matter until high school. But I think a lot of kids don't realize, what you do in middle school, like how you learn, how you study, how you do all the different things you do, that sets you up for high school. And I feel like having something in place for middle schoolers to lean on or for middle schoolers to think about would be really, really important and really helpful, because most kids don't even think about that. And most kids need that. Most kids need like a push of like, oh, I'm good at this, I should be doing this, sort of thing.
Sure.
Okay, I want to see if anybody else has any thoughts on this.
Red, your hand is up. You can feel free to talk whenever you want.
Emma, you can go ahead.
And just adding on to Andrew's earlier thought about how it depends on the teacher, I definitely think if the teachers like looked at this document and if we'd focused on just creating relationship with students and really that one-on-one support, I think that would be really helpful, especially since for teachers it's probably overwhelming with all the students and trying to create a one-on-one relationship or checking in. But if we focused on that, I feel that could really help this be successful.
Okay, if no one wants to share, I kind of want to pull up the current credit framework back and see if anyone has any thoughts or reflections on how we could fit in the profile skills to this. So like we've been doing, just go ahead and unmute or put anything in the chat or raise your hand. Andrew, go ahead.
Kind of looking at the state as a whole, how common is it for a district to have electives?
I think Jay would probably be the one to defer that question to, if you want to jump in, Jay.
Yeah, that is a good question. So what you see on screen right here are the state requirements, but this can look different from district to district because at the local level, school districts can add requirements too. And if they do that, what often happens then is that students may not have as many elective options left for their choosing. So some of these elective credits over here could get replaced by a local requirement. I don't know how many districts that would be out, so I'll just see if Linda or Alyssa happen to know how common that is.
I actually don't know how common. I do know that larger districts and districts that have a bell schedule with more that allows the opportunity to earn more than 24 credits are more likely to have electives. It's generally the small districts that have a limited teaching staff that can't offer the opportunity to have electives.
Oh, okay, thank you. Yeah, I was just wondering that because I feel like if there's a high percentage of students, of school districts who have those electives, that may be a good place to insert financial literacy or critical thinking or something like that, or even as some of the other students mentioned, more community service, community projects, because as an adult, financial literacy it's a requirement for being a responsible American citizen, and so I guess it seems like those would be good replacements for those electives because electives are, as the name implies, elective.
Emma, go ahead.
Adding on, I think if we could for financial literacy, have that as a required course, maybe put that into the elective somehow. I think that would be good. But if we could, if not, if we could integrate it into other subjects, I think that would also be a good option. Just integrating it somehow, putting it in to the education somehow. I think that would just be really helpful.
Okay, is there any more thoughts? And if you don't feel comfortable speaking out loud, feel free to put something in the chat. Okay, also just to add, this is our last discussion question. So now I'm going to just open the floor. If anyone has any final thoughts, yeah, it's open to talk about anything you like.
One thing I wanted to add, I don't know if this is like a part of the, career plan, but I said earlier about ethnic studies. We had a bunch of debates about it in my sociology class. And we thought about integrating that with civics or like US history somehow, like instead of just talking about US history, like there's because in my high school you get to choose between like certain history classes and stuff, and like you're not really pushed to learn about other people's histories because it's like there's so many types of people here like in high school, and people who we have a lot of diversity, a lot of like immigrants and families, and I think that'd be useful. And we were talking about where to put it at, and I think it should be in all history courses, at least. I don't know, somehow like a part of like each topic that's presented, there could be a subtopic about other diversities, because I just, from my experience, I had no idea about anything besides Eurocentric history, and what all these Europeans did, and like it just, I don't know, it's not really accurate history, in my opinion, from when I went to college, learning about a whole other slew of things. And I was like, oh, that's very interesting. I think that should definitely be restructured, and hopefully eventually we can teach more of that, because there is a lot of ignorance and not a lot of education on that. And diversity days, like as I said before, I know a lot of other school districts might do that, but from my 4 years of high school, there wasn't any of that. And I think that's important to be prepared for the real world. You're working with all types of people, and you don't want to have bias when you are, working in the real world or going to college. You have to, be able to respect other people and their culture and all that. And I think that's important. And we don't see a lot of that in my districts.
Thank you so much. Just want to see if anyone else has any final thoughts.
Adding on, so related to wellness and just overall mental health, I think we could definitely incorporate that more in health and fitness. A lot of times, at least in my district, health is just about like physical health and what to do to be healthy. But I feel like if teachers or overall schools just talked more about the mental health and how to just take care of yourself and make sure how to balance school with just life in general, because there's different types of students. There's some who pile on the work and want to do everything they can, and there's some who just want to take it easy and do what they have to. So I feel like if we balance that and balance the student needs with their mental health, I think that would be helpful.
Sure. Whoever else would like to speak, feel free.
Okay, hearing none, I think we're gonna transition. So just want to say once again, want to thank everyone who's joined in today's discussion. The State Board of Education will be reflecting on this first round of listening sessions during the upcoming board meeting next week on the 11th and the 12th. And if you have any more ideas that you didn't get the chance to share today, please let us know and we'd be happy to continue the conversation. We also welcome public comments at our board meetings and look forward to connecting with students and partners throughout the process as we work to develop recommendations. So thank you so much to everyone, especially the students and everybody here tonight for sharing your thoughts. And yeah, have a wonderful evening.